Hello YouTube, this is the last of my videos to try and explain a bit about my autistic traits, and in this video I want to try to tell you how I came to that conclusion, what clues I kind of picked up on in my life that led to me coming to the conclusion that I had autistic traits. In one of my other videos I did mention one clue, which was that some of my children have been diagnosed with autism, with higher functioning autism, or yeah, so I think that's a relevant indicator. And I'm going to give you some other clues, then I'm going to end up on a list of autistic traits that I got from the NHS website, which I think I found useful as well. So I've said some of this before, but these are some of the clues that I have that kind of led me down the path eventually to the conclusion that this is what I have going on my head. And the first thing I've already mentioned is that I feel comfortable having one best friend at a time. And when I thought back over my life, apart from a short exception when I was at university, in my 4 years at university, I actually had lots of friends, and it felt like the right sort of level of friends to have. But before university and after university, I only really had one, what I'd call best friend. And unfortunately, unfortunately, I would say, that person for most of my life was my wife. I was perfectly happy having one best friend who I was married to. And we were married for 24 odd years, more than that maybe, but together for more than that. We were married for about 24 years before things broke down. And I think looking back, obviously it puts a lot of pressure on the other person if I say to them, you're my best friend, you're my only friend, or worse, that effect, or if they know that's the case. And if we don't know why, I think for most of the time we were together, we didn't know why I was thinking that, then I think that does put pressure on, which is extra pressure. And that isn't the reason why we didn't last, but it didn't help. She would have other friends, and I accepted that. In that, I thought it was fine, but I didn't quite understand why Saul would need other friends, but now I do. Anyway, it's not a big part. It's not a big thing, but I wanted to acknowledge it in this video. A, in case she ever watches these videos, which I think is unlikely, but B, to acknowledge it. It's a real part of my life, and looking back on it, it has caused me some issues just having one best friend at a time. This goes back to school. At school I had one best friend, and then it would move on. There's a very sad story I've got about my one of my birthdays, which I won't go into, which was a result of which comes off a result of that. Right, what's next? I remember saying to my wife a few years ago words to this effect. In my head, I'm a light-hearted, humorous and kind person. But in the real world, I'm often misunderstood and thought of as being patronising and thoughtless. And I've said that out loud to her a couple of times towards the end of our relationship, because I was trying to get out of my head what I was thinking, because I lived my whole life thinking, you're a nice guy, you're friendly, you're kind, blah, blah, blah. But I now realise that being friendly and kind isn't about what you think you are, it's about what you do. And it's not just about what you think you do, it's about what you actually do and how it's perceived. And so there was always a mismatch between how I saw myself and how other people saw me. And I lived my whole life with that mismatch, not getting it. And now I kind of understand why that would be the case. Because when I'm communicating with people, my mind is distracting me. I'm trying to present ideas. I'm not listening very well. I'm kind of giving problem-solving advice to people which don't ask for advice. And this, if you've seen my other videos, you'll see I did a video a while ago about my personal values. And in that video, or the second video, I did mention about my 5 communication rules. And so I suppose I better mention them here just in case you haven't seen it. I came up with a solution which I live by now. I try to live by this anyway. It's a way of me resolving these issues about the difference between what's in my head and about how I come across. I basically pinned it down to being how I communicate with people. So I chose to do these 5 things. 1, not assume I know what someone is thinking. So I've got to ask somebody what they are thinking and not try and guess. And equally, B, I can't assume someone knows what I'm thinking. I've got to tell them. So tell someone what I'm thinking, don't assume they know it. Secondly, I will not give any advice to anybody else unless they actually ask for it. Thirdly, I don't want to judge anybody else for the decisions they make in their life. And I think I've forgotten the other one. So the first one was 2-part, then there's the last one. I'm not going to worry about it now. I'm going to move on. So the non-judgmental, non-advice. Oh, listening, yeah. Listen to actively listen to people was number 1. Number 2 was tell people or ask people what they're thinking. So it's like the 2-parter. 3, non-judgmental. 4, don't offer advice. And if I can do those 5 things, then I feel that my communication is better. So that was a way in which I tried to resolve this misperception between how I came across and how I thought about myself. The next thing that I want to share with you is there's a period of time after I'd done therapy where I realised the following thing. My mind craved recognition from people because I wanted to do things to help, to get, to help people to get their thanks, to get their gratitude. And that, I think, comes about from, childhood, not necessarily feeling particularly nurtured, I suppose. And so I live my life wanting to be helpful and useful. And my mind always goes to, either in work or personal life, helping other people. I love helping other people. If I can, I will. But on the other hand, I absolutely detest and hate any form of public gratitude being displayed towards me. So if I'm going to receive an award or get praise in public at work, when I worked for a company, I would get some praise from somebody. So on one side of me, I would crave having the recognition for being good at my work or a good person. And the other side of my mind, I would hate ever having to publicly accept praise. And then I realised, right there, those 2 things are directly incompatible. Your mind is not working in your best interests. And when I realised that, I realised I had to be a bit more mindful about what my mind was doing, subconsciously. So a lot of this is subconscious. So I realised that subconsciously my mind was at war with itself, wanting recognition and wanting to hide away. And neither was going to win until I dealt with whatever it was causing that. And I think that was one of the steps towards me realising that my mind wasn't necessarily, as I said, working, doing its best for me as a person. And then the last thing, sort of more later on, I was actually told by my wife and my eldest child, you've got autistic traits. You've got autism. And being told it by somebody else isn't necessarily going to work unless you accepted it yourself. But I was in a point where I suppose I'll put it another way. If I'd been told that like a few years ago, I would have dismissed it and ignored it, and it'd been very defensive. But towards the end of my relationship with my wife, I was in a bit more reflective state, and I was able to. I actually asked her, "I think I've got autistic traits. What do you think?" And she said, "Yes, absolutely." And my daughter then told me later on, she introduces me to her friends as my dad with autism, which I never knew. So obviously it was seen in other people, but obviously they weren't able to tell me. So that's the other kind of bit of evidence I've got that I have autistic traits. And then finally, there's probably other little things I've forgotten about in my life that have led, these little jigsaw pieces that lead together to the conclusion that I have got autistic traits. And I would say that because I've got a problem-solving kind of mindset, that's helped me come to the conclusion, because I have been reflective and trying to resolve why I've got these conflicts in my head, and I've kind of pieced together how do I think about things, and then it makes sense to think about it from the terms of having autism. So when I put that label to it, suddenly all the thoughts that I've described in my other videos made a lot of sense then. If you imagine my other videos but not knowing I had autistic traits, can you imagine how complex your life can be, and how poor your decisions are if you're making decisions not knowing that? So I want to finish off by just running through the NHS website's list of autistic traits, and I'll tell you what I think about myself, and maybe you can think about your own situation. So this is called Main Signs of Autism. Common signs of autism in adults include the following: finding it hard to understand what others are thinking or feeling. Well, absolutely. I've got no ideas what other people are thinking or feeling. You have to tell me. Second one, getting anxious about social situations. Yep, absolutely. I would call myself an introvert. I don't know how to deal with social situations. I try to avoid them. Yeah, I would absolutely say I'm like that. Number 3, finding it hard to make friends or preferring to be on your own. I think I've described that quite accurately. I find it hard to have more than one friend at a time, and I prefer to be on my own. It's only the fact that you get lonely that I have any sort of romantic partnership and friendship at all. This next one is interesting. Seeming blunt, rude, or not interested in others without meaning to. I mean, I don't think I am like that, but others would beg to differ. And I'm getting a little bit emotional about that, because I don't want to be that sort of person, but clearly people see like that. The next one, finding it hard to say how you feel. Absolutely. I find emotions very difficult to even understand, never mind express. Taking things very literally. For example, you may not understand sarcasm or phrases like break a leg. Well, that one I take a little bit of exception to, I suppose. I do agree, I take things very literally, but I think this is the higher functioning side. I do get aphorisms and phrases that people use, raining cats and dogs. I never felt that raining cats and dogs was a problem for me. Break a leg. I mean, for me, those phrases, I have my brain goes, that isn't literal, is it? But then I think, oh, it's just a phrase. I'm aware that it's not literal, and I recognise it, and I sort of register it. But then I recognise it's a socially acceptable way of saying something else, and I get that. So I don't find that hard. But can you imagine if you're on the lower end of the spectrum and you can't understand that? Life must be so confusing. Also, before I move on, I probably should say this at the start. I do want to say, I forgot to say this at the start, I'm living a perfectly normal, inverted commas, life. I'm not trying to say that I have autism. I'm on the spectrum, I think, but there are people who have a much worse experience of living with autism than I do. And I feel very lucky, very fortunate that I live in an age which accepts, which has the information available that I can go on the internet and look at the internet and look at things like this. We are living in a society which is a bit more understanding of autism. And I'm also very pleased that I have the kind of capabilities to rationalise and understand some of these things. I really feel for those people who are suffering much more from the spectrum, and it's difficult. I don't have it bad compared to some people. And then finally it says, having the same routine every day and getting very anxious if it changes. I'm probably saying that's the least relevant to me. I don't have a routine in that respect. I don't get anxious if I break a routine. I get anxious if I have too many things building up. So it's not, that is the last one on that list, which I probably say is least applies to me. And then finally it says, other signs of autism. You may also have other signs like not understanding social rules, such as not talking over people. Well, I kind of get those rules because I've learned them. Avoiding eye contact. Well, I can kind of do that. I've learned to do that. Getting too close to other people or getting very upset if someone touches you or gets close to you. Again, mildly. I think I avoid getting close to people, and I would find someone get close to me quite upsetting. But probably I'll just say to them, move away, or I'd move away. Noticing small details, patterns, smells or sounds that others do not. I think that's true. I think I notice errors, grammatical errors, more than the average person would do. I'm not saying that no one else does that. I'm saying that if you took a population, I'm going to be in the half population that spots them more often than those that don't. I mean, for example, I'm not going to be making the error in grammar of you and your, and your, you are and your. But some people do it because they don't notice the difference, because they don't know the difference. So they wouldn't notice it. Having a very keen interest in certain subjects or activities. Well, I'm very work oriented, I suppose. That could be that. But I'm not sure I'm too single focused. I don't have many interests, so maybe it comes to that. Maybe that is part of who I am. And liking to plan things carefully before doing them. I would say maybe a bit, yes. I do like to know what I'm doing, and don't like to be spontaneous. So I suppose that's more true. So those second 6 things I think are less, I would say, a less part of me. I would say they're more probably people who are suffering on the lower end of the spectrum, so the lower intelligence level. Okay, is there anything else? Yeah, no, I think I'll bring it to a close there. Thank you very much for listening. I hope these 4 videos have been of use. I'm glad I've got them out there now. It's been a while getting there, but I feel I've kind of achieved something now of something that's worth doing. I'm just got to think about now how I'm putting them out and when. Right, thank you for listening. Farewell.